Hello, listeners. Welcome to season 2 of the Masters Decoded podcast. I am Manish Merchant, the chief decoder. I want to thank you for the overwhelming response to season 1. Your feedback and encouragement led me to bring you season 2 of the Masters Decoded. The season will tap into how technology, artificial intelligence, and other socio-economic factors have impacted my guest careers or passions. My next guest on today's episode is Sayema Rahman. Sayema is an award winning radio jockey and is associated with Radio Mirchi for the last 18 years. She has completed her Masters of Philosophy in Social Work from Miranda House, Delhi University. We spoke about radio, Urdu, and philosophy during the conversation, and it has been a far enriching conversation. Without much further ado, let me get on with it. Hi, Saima. Welcome to Masters Decoded second season.
Thank you so much for having me on this wonderful show that I've been listening to for so long now.
Great, Saima. And people who don't know about you, you are a pretty big advocate to a language which I believe is losing its essence in the modern times, which is Urdu. Uh, so I would love to hear how your affection, your passion towards Urdu really started off.
Anis, Urdu is my mother tongue.
Okay.
And I did not realize the beauty of this language till a few years back because I went to a Sikh school.
Hmm.
So formally, I learned English, Hindi, and Gurmukhi.
Okay.
um, so I can read and write in Gurmukhi, and I basically used to sing shabads and kirtans in gurudwaras and schools because I was interested in singing. Um, and I never ever really got the inclination to learn my own language. It was a given. It was almost like how we call it "ghar ki murgi dal barabar."
Hmm.
So, but I used to realize that when people in my school used to speak to me, even my teachers, they would be enamored by the sound of the way we used to speak. Somebody used to call us. Some people would call us Kashmiris. Some people would call us Lucknowis, and I couldn't understand why would they. What is so different about me speaking than a Harpreet speaking?
Hmm.
And since we were the only, me, my brother and sister, we were the only Muslims in that Sikh school. uh,
Wow.
my teachers would actually ask me to sit on the staff room desk and just talk.
Okay, that's a great honor as well as fame
Yeah,
in
yeah,
as a young person.
but at that point of time I used to feel very uncomfortable that I'm speaking normally, I'm speaking the way I speak to Ammi and the way I speak to Abu, but there was something different about it. And later I realized that that's what actually got me into perhaps radio. That is what got me into public speaking. That is what, and then I realized that, see, if subconsciously I have learned uh, a language that is so beautiful as a part of my culture, I should be making some, conscious efforts to make it better.
Hmm.
And I think the entire, right now, all the whether it's poetry or Urdu ki Pathshala, it's basically, um, carrying the journey of learning together. We're doing a group study because I cannot call myself a teacher. I'm not qualified to be called a teacher. But I feel that life is too short. Whatever I have learned today, if I share it with, my friends and people who are listening to me, or people who have inclination or who find this language beautiful, if I share my knowledge, they'll also learn along with me. So I'm actually doing like a group study with them when I do an Urdu ki Pathshala or poetry. I'm certainly not a teacher, just not an authority on the language or poetry. But yes, I'm a keen learner, and I feel there are many out there.
Rightly pointed out that the language is so unique and beautiful. Even a person, and there is a foundation now, Rekta Foundation, which has taken on itself to promote Urdu in a
Hmm.
big way. And I have seen you participating in one of those uh, I would not call it an exhibition, but the shows which they have once in a year. And I I have seen a lot of folks. Typically, Urdu would relate to a particular religion, which is Islam. But in that Rekta Foundation, I know a lot of my friends. I've never been there, but a lot of non-Islam friends have been there, and they rave about Rekta Foundation. So the language doesn't define religion, and religion doesn't define language. And it is a beautiful language, which I would agree to. When you hear it, it just sounds beautiful.
Oh, absolutely, Anis. Language has got nothing to do with any religion. Language is spoken in the cultural context.
Yeah.
And, Urdu originated in India, and
Hmm.
it's it's closer to perhaps the Arabic or the Persian this thing, and that's why people kind of relate it to a particular religion, which is absolutely foolish because I mean I know of Muslims who speak a very uh, regional languages, and that's their own. And
Yep.
so many yeah, I mean all this divide of poor languages being dragged by religious sects saying this is mine and that is yours is just
Yeah.
very yeah, funny, I think. Language is culture, and
Yep.
here in India it kind of changes after every few kilometers. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, and yes, one thing that I really want to add here, Anis, because you said in your beginning introduction that you you noticed it because you think Urdu is fading away or
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
I'd like to challenge that because Urdu is a language of love.
Hmm.
It is a language of pain, and these are
Hmm.
constant emotions of human beings. So it cannot die. One second, a language or the prominence or fading away of any language also is a reflection on how the civilization is progressing. Okay,
Right.
uh, we uh, we do look for uh, soft-spoken, civilized souls, which are again becoming far and fewer in
That's
the
correct.
society around,
Hmm.
and that's how we look at the language also, because that is the context we're talking about. So language is nothing but and uh, as the emotions and context of love, harmony, brotherhood, uh, all these things are actually,
Alive.
you know, they're alive, but they are faced with a challenge to
Hmm.
survive,
Yep.
um, to stay strong.
Yep.
And any language and all languages who would uh, actually complement those emotions and those contexts would also seem like getting faded away, but that's not the case.
Yep.
The only thing is they need to be brought back. In fact, this is the time, let me just also say this, that this is the time when Urdu seems more beautiful than what it is,
Yep.
because of so much of darkness around. You see a
Hmm.
little light and you truly learn to value it, and you say,
Yep.
oh my god, there is a ray of light. So I think that's how we're perceiving the language. But yes, we have lots of challenges, but these are the things which never die. I mean, love, harmony, brotherhood, beauty, romance, pain, they would never die.
I agree. It really invokes a lot of sentiments. People, and I personally, when you're down, or when you need that zeal of emotions or extra motivations, Urdu is a language, and there are a lot of good poets who've done a great job.
Yeah.
They have deep meaning in that poet, which it takes time to understand. But you said one thing which I want to double click. You said you are not a qualified teacher. You may not be a qualified teacher in Urdu, which I believe that's what you meant.
Yeah.
But you do have a degree of lecturer.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's a challenge back to you. But uh, and if I look at what you are currently doing, is you are a recognized radio jockey in India.
Hmm.
Uh, how being a lecturer to being a radio jockey, where did that all begin?
Anis, today I can actually answer this question because you can always look back and join the dots of your life. But and that's why I always say this that sometimes it's important to go with the flow because
Mm.
you might not know where you wish to go. In my life, I uh, I had clarity about what I will not do rather
Mm.
than what I would do. Okay,
Okay.
and so it all began with, and I have never gone looking for things, but
Okay.
when opportunities come my way, then I do not say no very easily. Okay,
Mm.
I actually see them as opportunities. So what had happened was that when I was in school, my father was an associate professor of English in Delhi University, so he was a lecturer,
Okay.
and so just like any child, I also wanted to become a lecturer. So I was pretty determined that I would one day become a lecturer, and that is what I was aiming at. And I was a kind of kid who would be very organized about what I want to achieve,
Mm.
with with the dates, in the
Okay.
sense that by, let's say, by October I should have achieved this, and by so and so whatever. So I had made an Excel sheet where I'd
Mm.
actually written down uh, that this is the year in which I would become a lecturer. And I remember I was in class 10th, and I was taking a stroll outside. There was load shedding, and there was no electricity. So my father, my Abbu, and we were taking a stroll outside. And I asked my father, I said, Abbu, when do you think you're going to get me married?
Mm.
So
Interesting.
he looked at me and he said, why do you ask? So I said,
Mm.
because listen, I'm in 10th right now, class 10th. So I need to figure out the years that I will fully be able to like take my own decisions and not consider other things. So if you're telling me that I have, let's say, 5 years, then I would plan my 5 years accordingly, and then I would, look ahead. So
Mm.
he just smiled and he said, how do I know when you would get married? I said, even
Mm.
you don't know. I was very, disappointed because everything in life for me was like an Excel sheet.
Mm.
I should know about everything, and I should be able to plan and stuff. So yeah, I was that organized and that Excel sheeted in my head. But so I had to become a lecturer, and I was doing everything to become
Mm.
that. But I also, when I was in class 7th, I had developed um, a passion, I would say, or an interest at that point of time to work on my oration, because I used to listen to all India. I mean, that was the only thing that was played
Yep.
in my house for the consumption of news. And
Mm.
whenever Abu would hear news on the radio, it would always begin with, "This is All India Radio, the news read by so and so." And
Mm.
I started dreaming about one day when the radio would play, "This is All India Radio, the news read by Sayema Rahman." So I
Wow.
wanted to I
Okay.
wanted to get there, and
Mm.
I started doing my practice sessions at home. I used to sit with the newspaper every evening, and I would read the newspaper like a newsreader, always starting with, "This is All India Radio, the news read by Sayema Rahman." And so it began there. But that was my area of interest,
Okay.
and I wasn't giving it a lot of attention. But I used to read for hours together and not realize. And when I was in class 12th, I remember my father getting a karaoke system home. For the first time, we had
Okay.
something like a mic and radio. And he
Mm-hmm.
very categorically told us that nobody is going to operate it without his permission. And like a typical kid, if you were asked not to do something, you would venture into that.
Yeah.
So my father was leaving for his classes, and he left. And I started speaking in the mic, and I started recording myself. And obviously, I said, "This is All India Radio, the news read by whatever," and started reading the newspaper. And my father had forgotten his wallet, so he came back all of a sudden, and I saw him, and I freaked. and I stopped the recording. And no, I was playing my recording back when he entered, and I stopped it, and he almost, yelled at me, saying, "Whenever there is news on radio, you never switch off the radio."
Oh,
And
interesting.
I looked at him with a lot of pride, and I said, "Well, that wasn't news. That was my recording."
Okay.
So my father is, a miser when it comes to paying compliments, especially to his own daughters and sons. So he
Hmm.
looked at me and he just said, "Oh, not bad." His not bad was like, my God, my, trophy. So I called up
Hmm.
All India Radio. I remember I called up All India Radio and I said, and there was a guy, there was a male voice at the other end, and I said, "Listen, I need to become a newsreader." So he
Hmm.
said, "Okay, what do you do?" I said, "I'm in class 12th."
Hmm.
So he said, "Oh, kid, you need to wait for 3 more years because you can only take an audition of a newsreader if you're a graduate." And I was like, my God, he just like broke my dream. I don't think I can wait for 3 years. So I think he kind of caught the excitement in my voice, and he directed me to a section which was meant for teenagers.
Okay.
And then I think within that week, I reached All India Radio, took the audition in that teenager section. Well, I think I cleared it, and I started doing shows for Yuvavani, as they call it, in the anticipation that the 3 years will pass by, and then I'll take the audition of a newsreader. So to cut the
Hmm.
long story short, Anis, I got into the pipeline, and all this I was doing with a very conscious mind of becoming a lecturer. So I was pretty good
Okay.
in my studies, and I was among the top students, and I was prepping for everything.
Hmm.
And I got admission in Miranda House here in sociology honors, and then I went on to do my master's in social work and stuff. And then I cleared my national eligibility test, which made me qualify, made me, which was a qualification for a lecturer. And in the meantime, I was doing my radio, but that was my
Hmm.
passion. I never used to talk about it. I never used to talk about the fact that the entire day I'm attending college, and the entire night I'm in the radio station doing shows and duties, and having sleepless nights. But I was very happy. I wasn't tired.
Hmm.
So I was following my heart without a plan,
Okay. Interesting.
and I was following my career with a lot of mind.
Hmm.
And there came a point in one of the years when I was awarded as the best radio jockey of the entire country, and I was the only radio awards.
Wow.
And that was the year when I had to take a call
Hmm.
whether I would. And I actually joined my department of social work as a guest lecturer, and I used to, the only time students would take me seriously would be when I would go into the classroom and say, "All right, let's begin the class." So, that base voice helped.
Yeah.
Other than that, I had started doing Purani Jeans show on Radio Mirchi, and all my students would come and say, "Listen, ma'am, look at us. I'm wearing a pair of Purani jeans." And they never took me
Hmm.
seriously, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, so that was the year when I decided that, all right, so there is a profession which is giving me so much of respect. I mean, it just happened by fluke. It didn't
Hmm.
happen by fluke. I worked like tirelessly for it. But when you're
Yeah.
following your passion, you have no sense of time and hard work that goes into it, right?
I
So
completely agree.
that's how the thing. And I did my master's in social work, Anis. Very important to remember, because now I'm able to understand. At that point of time when I was leaving my lecturership, and from MPhil I did not go for PhD and stuff.
Hmm.
I used to ask myself, what did I do? Did I just waste my entire education because I'm getting into radio?
Yeah.
What was the use of doing, and I was on scholarship. So I did my MPhil on scholarship because I got junior research fellowship from Delhi University. I
Wow.
said, all my teachers told me, what are you doing, Saima? You are a bright student. How can you go into radio? But
Hmm.
anyways, I was I I was just asking myself that there is a field which has given me such a huge recognition. It's giving me
Hmm.
money, and it's my passion. It's my
Hmm.
heart's calling. And should I leave it just because? I had decided in my mind that will become a lecturer. Well, I wanted to become a lecturer, I became.
Yep.
Now, should I go that way just because it is my zid?
Yep.
And that's when I decided no. I mean, I don't want to, get into any decision which is like a reaction or just a, uh, I always call it zid.
Hmm.
That was the first time I listened to my heart. And today, Anis, all my education,
Hmm.
whatever I did, masters in social work and the principles of social work that I am doing all of that
Okay.
on radio and social media.
And we'll touch more about that because there's one thing which really intrigues me because today technology has evolved and has connected people like you who are on the radio more visually than it was earlier very audio centric. Like in your own college, your students knew that you were on the radio, but many of us who didn't have any means to connect with you,
Hmm,
we would only listen to you, and it's not just listen to you. Amitani and all of them, they would come on TVs and the Doordarshan and all of that, and we could see them. But there were
right.
many other radio jockeys who didn't have that opportunity. So if you ever listen to your show or anybody else's show, we would only in our minds think, okay, how would you look or anybody look? And when you are expressing those emotions, or thoughts,
Hmm,
or sharing some perspectives, whether it's on a political situation or a social or economic or any of those situations,
hmm,
we would just relate to it more with our eyes closed and just putting on our ears to work. And you know, those years were very fundamental for radio to where it is today.
hmm.
Uh, do you like it, the transition which has happened in the last decade with radio specifically, and y'all able to connect more with the audience in more different forms?
So yes, Anis, I'm witness to the entire transition and you know before social media radio and after
Yeah.
social media radio. Yes. So let me put it this way that when the transition was happening,
Hmm.
it was very shocking for us
Okay.
because because a radio jockey, and I'm talking about a radio jockey, not an entertainer. And I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
draw a difference here.
Mm-hmm.
An entertainer is, entertaining masses, whether he's on stage or in front of a crowd or behind a mic.
Yeah.
But a radio jockey and an entertainer is an extrovert soul.
Yeah.
A radio jockey is a very introvert person.
Very
And,
interesting.
and that's why that person is able to connect with another heart.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, suddenly, this transition basically meant that I will have to come in front of the world in a manner that I did not choose to.
Hmm.
Let me give you my own example. I chose news reading on radio because
Mm-hmm.
I did not want to face a camera. I,
Interesting.
I wasn't comfortable in front of a camera. I didn't want to put makeup.
Hmm.
I didn't want people to look at me and get entertained. Yeah. I wanted
Hmm.
to, and that was one of my reasons for joining news on radio.
Hmm.
And look where I am today. I'm in front of the camera, you know,
All. Yeah.
oh, absolutely more time than I'm behind the mic on radio.
Mm-hmm.
And so initially, when the transition was happening, it was very shocking and very unsettling for a lot of radio jockeys. In fact, even today, a lot of radio jockeys are pretty unsettled about the fact that they have to, post their selfies and make videos and come in front of the camera. They're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember one song that had come at that point of time, Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah.
And this song keeps
By
haunting.
Queen.
Yeah,
By
this
the.
song, absolutely. This song keeps haunting every now and then. So
Mhm.
today it's almost like what social media killed the radio star, but radio can never die. So Yeah, I mean, saying medium might change, and you might see different face of radio and might go through transition and stuff. But so at that point of time when the transition was happening, it was shocking. But today, Anis, let me say this: after you have fought all those little battles inside you,
Yep.
regarding coming in front of the camera, accepting your looks, basically keep on telling yourself that it is your content that matters, and it is your content that you are trying to put across. You have to
Hmm.
obviously, I mean, it's like go into self counseling and stuff. That happened for some time. And then I told myself one day, I said, okay, Saima, enough.
Hmm.
Just like you look at the mic and you speak to another heart, this time
Hmm.
you've got to look into the camera and speak to another heart.
Hmm.
I made one thing very clear, that I cannot act to save my life. I cannot be somebody else. That is what
Yep.
radio has taught us, right? I mean, radio is a naked
Hmm.
medium. You are
Yep.
you are who you are on mic.
Hmm.
People who pretend to be somebody else, they die. They don't they do not become successful radio jockeys.
You've been saying one thing in this entire piece in the last segment that you speak to another heart,
Yeah.
and you gave a reference of the education which you have taken on, and I see a linkage there.
Hmm.
Uh, how do you take that knowledge, which is in psychology, and apply that into radio today when you're talking to somebody and talking to another heart, as you say?
Anis, you've got to I think, it's all about how you wish to live your life. I think
Hmm.
once you're able to answer that question, and the answer doesn't come easily very often. Once you're
Hmm.
able to answer that question, a lot of things get very clear. So there was a reason why I pursued masters in social work, and I was
Hmm.
working with people, also trying to learn how you can work with people without financially helping them, without shelling out a penny from your pocket and helping them. How is that possible? Okay. So I learned that when I was doing my masters in social work, and during that course I realized that, it's about respecting every single individual, his life experiences. For example, let me give you an example here, Anis. When I started the course of social work, my first lecture, okay, my
Hmm.
first class was all about the very first principle of social work, which is the principle of acceptance. So
Okay.
the lecture, our teacher asked us, so what do you understand when I say principle of acceptance? And all of us said that, we have to accept people we are working with.
Hmm.
And the teacher said, partially right, partially wrong. And we were like, what? How can it be wrong?
Hmm.
So she said, principle of acceptance. The very first step is that you need to become a person your people would accept.
Hmm.
So if I'm working in a slum, those
Hmm.
people should be able to accept me.
Yep.
Of course, I have to accept them, but the first thing is they have to accept me. So we said,
Yep.
why would they not accept us?
Hmm.
We're such, what should I say, privileged soul, that we take things for granted. So
Yep.
my teacher said that, and what gives you that confidence that you will be accepted?
Hmm.
So it was all about putting questions in the mind. And Anis, when we went to the field to work with
Hmm.
people, okay,
Hmm.
and that's where we learned we don't have to work for people, we have to work with people. And the
Hmm.
first principle of acceptance lasted for 3 months, when
Okay.
the slum constantly rejected my entry.
Hmm.
And I said, my God, I mean, look at this principle, which we need to apply in every aspect of our lives, from the friendship to our parents to our relatives. We just take it for granted that they would accept us. We do nothing to get accepted.
This principle of acceptance is so valid right now when you were talking and explaining it to me. Uh, in business, which is
Hmm.
my corporate side, it is so valuable. We take things for granted in
Yeah,
business.
yeah, exactly.
That
And we don't even question it. We just don't question the, we have a sense of entitlement,
mm,
that the might is right. But
mm,
who gave you that pedestal to just climb high? And so principle of accept, that was the first. Now look at radio. When
yep,
I go on mic, when I switch on the mic and I speak, if my
yep,
voice has that sense of entitlement, Anis,
mm,
the person who's listening to me would reject me there and then.
mm.
And the connect can never be made. It's
Very
the
well put.
So it's the same principle that I learned there. And it's a principle of life that I learned there. And I'm now applying every single thing that I learned there to my radio experience, which taught me that y- people like people like me, I'm not going to talk about others. I am not meant to address a group or a community and give lectures. I need
Mm,
to stand with one person, one individual, one soul who is longing to be heard. This world is made of uh, persons who have their individual identities.
mm,
I have to stand by an individual. The
mhm.
principle on radio is that you do not, it's not one to many, though
Yep,
that's the matrix and that's the business language. But
yep,
for a radio jockey, the brief is it is a one to one.
mm,
On radio, I'm talking to one person. And I practiced for years to hit that bullseye, that whoever is listening to me should be able to feel that I'm only talking to him or her
mm.
while I'm talking to many.
It's an art to learn. We, as many people, even though experienced, fail to do that very effectively. Whether it's talking over these mediums or having a conversation in a larger group.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
yes, I learned everything that for me, it's important to live a life which is which is not just, which doesn't center around an
Hmm,
I have to share my life uh, with others who might need me. And I also believe, Anis, that uh, God has given me so much, not because I deserve it,
hmm.
because I should share it.
Okay.
It's a trust that I would be able to do justice with people without being biased.
Hmm.
And I take that as a sense of responsibility, I guess.
The fans, previously they would just listen to you over radio and they
Hmm,
would know you through radio.
hmm,
Now, as social media came about, there were many other mediums where they could see you. Earlier, they were only hearing you, and they could also ping you directly through mediums.
hmm,
Earlier, through radio, they could only call up if there was a calling service available on your
hmm.
channel, on radio channel. Now they can ping you. So, have you had situations where fans have uh, reached out to you, approached you, and things went a little out of hand for you?
So if I understand it correctly, basically you're saying that had I have did I have those fan moments where it was scary?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Those fan moments happened even before social media became a reality, even when I was on radio, because I've always, apart from my radio show, we used to have exchanges on mails. They could write to me, I will write back, and or they would, send me a post mail, and I would acknowledge it and stuff. So at that point of time, a lot of scary incidents did happen. That I mean, if I would tell you, then you would say, no, no, this is not possible. But I've received letters written in blood.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Okay.
and my colleagues used to pull my leg saying, nahi, nahi, this is not like human blood. This must be a chicken blood or something like that. And I would say, कि अच्छा फिर तो ठीक है. But then when that guy landed up on our uh, reception in our office, and we saw like the wrists slit and stuff, and it was, yeah. So
Uh, okay.
yeah, so I have, I mean, it sounds so dramatic, but yes, I have, and I've received these blood-stained letters not from just one person, but from some people. And
Hmm.
that's why I would always say on radio, please don't think that I'm a Madhubala. I would
Sure.
try try and shatter their dreams, saying that God, please come
Yeah.
and so yeah, that has happened. Then other things have also happened in the sense that uh, because see, Anis, every good thing has an ugly side to it. And
Yep.
like I told that my what was my bullseye, that whenever I talk on radio, if you are a listener, you should feel that I'm talking to you.
Hmm.
So I must share the story that I when I was doing the night show, which was called Purani Jeans, Bollywood's golden eras songs and stuff. When I was doing that show in India, now I do it for the American market. But when I was doing this show in India, uh, during my initial years, there was a student of IIT
Okay.
who came to the office, and he asked for me, and I went and I met him, and
Okay.
he didn't look at me, and he just slid a doctor's advice slip, and it was a psychiatrist notepad, and he had written that the person who's sitting in front of me suffers from schizophrenia, and the entire detailed note how he had started speaking to me on radio. So he used to live all alone in a room, and he used to listen to the show. And each time I would speak, he would talk to me.
Wow.
And he got into that habit of talking to me, and that led to the illness that he was currently in. And the psychiatrist had actually suggested that you go and meet her and understand how it happens. She's not talking to you.
Hmm.
So he had come, and I took him around, and I took him to the engineer's room and showed him the technology and explained. But Anis, he had fallen into an illness, and he basically refused to accept that I was talking to anybody else but him.
Wow.
And it took me 7 months of writing to him every single day about his queries and explaining it to him, to convince that, listen, I'm not talking to you. I had to actually tell him that I'm not talking to you.
Hmm.
So
Which
from
is different from your ethos, which you had tried to
yeah,
build on.
yeah, but I mean the intention was not to make somebody fall ill, you know. So from those things to uh, people coming into office and threatening the security guard, saying that if she doesn't marry me, then I'm going to put the entire
Okay.
building to fire and stuff. All those things have happened. I mean, they
Hmm.
keep happening actually, but yeah. So those scary fan moments have happened. But what do I do? I mean, I remember a few days back, Anis, there was this one guy. He was lodged, okay, and he had
Okay.
come with a bouquet and gifts and all that, and like Amitabh Bachchan with a bottle in his hand, he's shouting from outside the
Okay.
gate that, call her, today is our wedding day. And
Okay.
all the security guards are like,
Okay.
actually they were calling and saying, do you know this guy? I said, are you guys out of your mind? How would I know him? So he said, no, but he's saying that it's your wedding day. I said, my God, please,
Hmm.
you please tell him to go back. He did not. And a police had to be called, and the police guys took him. And I felt very bad in me. So I called him from a landline to explain that, get your sense together. It's when I called, this chap was so confident. I mean, I just said hello, and he tells cops, stop the car, she has called. And I'm
Hmm.
like, what? What kind of confidence is that? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, these things, I guess, I mean,
No, I'm for a person who's listening, from my side at least, it may sound childish, but for a person like you to be in that moment is scary as well.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
very scary actually.
yeah. So no, I empathize with you. But talking about radio, also now technology has also disrupted. Like you were talking about, you were a news reader. Now
Hmm.
people consume news from
Yeah.
various channels. And there was an interesting presentation I did a year ago with somebody, and this was when the world was novel, where we spoke about, and I actually did with an executive who was running a radio in the international market. And that person said that, our eyes are maxed out, but our ears are not. And that's a beautiful medium where we can pass our messages. How do you
Absolutely.
feel tech has really impacted careers in radio? And do you see that happening?
Anis, I would always try and see the good part in
Okay.
in any change that happens, because I truly believe that there is something good hidden and I need to find that out. So I told you the transition was difficult, but once the transition happened, and
Mm,
look, today I keep telling my younger colleagues that you guys have entered radio in a golden age, because you are not dependent on anybody for your marketing and promotion. You
mm,
can build a platform of your own. The world is open to different ideas, and you can find your own community and group of people and take your content ahead. I mean, earlier we had to convince our radio stations that, listen, I wish to be a storyteller. But what if your brand tells you that, no, no, we are not into the business of storytelling? Today,
okay.
whatever you wish to do, you are good at. You can showcase the talent, do it with conviction, earn your views, earn your followers, and if you become a brand, then the parent brand would support you.
Mm,
So, and I'm a living example of that. I mean, Mirchi is all about entertainment, make people
mm-hmm.
happy, make people laugh and all that. And I am a brand of poetry.
Yeah.
And when I wanted to do it on radio, Mirchi was very hesitant, saying that no, this is not our promise. Not everybody listens to poetry, and they're right.
Yeah.
Not everybody listens to poetry. But
I
once I
agree.
became a brand, then Mirchi is only too happy to project me as the voice of poetry, because I've given them what they want: the popularity, the brand value. So
Mm-hmm.
I look at this entire age as something that is fascinating. I don't have just one medium where I can rise and shine and make my content, reach many people. I have five platforms,
Mm-hmm.
and I can do different. Every person is multifaceted. You
Yep.
are you have so many talents, and if you have more than one medium, you can just showcase different talent on different mediums. So, for example, on radio, Anis, today I do a show. So
Mm-hmm.
I basically one day sat down and I was pretty bogged down with all these comments saying, radio is not the same and radio is dying and not many people are listening to it
Mm,
and all that. I said, okay, so the responsibility of keeping the radio alive is on my shoulders now. Saima, what are you going
yep.
to do on radio which will make radio shine again? And
Mm,
I thought, I said, I'm going to do something on radio which cannot be done on any other medium. What is it? And I found the answer, and that's the show that I'm doing.
mm,
I'm doing a show where magic happens, which is only
okay.
possible in the world of radio. So it's called, in Hindi we say Har Marz Ki Dawa, and
Yep.
in English, basically the belief is every problem has a solution. So I basically tell my listeners, if you're listening to me right now and not smiling, then you have a
Yeah.
reason not to smile, which can be a worry, which can be a stress, which can be an unanswered question. I understand you don't want to go to your family or parents and discuss it. I understand you don't want to discuss it with your friends because they might judge you or they might not have the solution. But listen, there is a world where if you just talk about your problem, there would be lakhs and crores of people who would be listening to you. Somebody would
Mm-hmm.
have gone through that struggle. Somebody might be struggling. Somebody might be a professional who can help you come out of it, or somebody can just help you sail through it. So
Mm,
just do one thing: call on my studio number. I will not ask you your name. You will not be seen. Just put your problem in front of the entire city. And then I open the lines for others to call me back. And Anis, there has not been a problem till, I've been doing this for 2 years now. Every day people have problems and I listen to their problems and I say, Abhi iska kya solution hoga? But somebody or the other would call up and help that person come out of it.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it's not possible on any other medium.
Hmm.
So for me, radio is that perfect world which we want to create, where we make friends who we don't have to see. Their face will not decide whether we'll befriend them. Their religion will not decide whether we would befriend them. Their
Hmm.
skin color will not decide whether we would befriend them. Their economic situation won't. Their caste won't. It's just one heart connecting to another.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's a problem that CEO would put on my show, and that would be, addressed by a driver.
Hmm.
And the CEO would follow it because he doesn't know that the person who just gave him the solution is a driver.
Hmm.
So,
That's
so,
yeah. It's
so,
profound
I mean,
what you're doing.
abs- exactly. So, I mean, and I don't do anything. Like I'm saying, isn't this social work? I mean, that is why
It
we are
is.
all alive.
Yeah.
That's why we are all alive. That, if I can just help one soul, that's
Yeah.
it. And I'm
Agree.
just like, making them connect. That's it.
You spoke about poetry and you being a poetry advocate, and that's been a big passion for you. And there are many shows which you do as well on YouTube, on LinkedIn as well, professionally.
Mm.
And I'm an avid follower on LinkedIn, I would say, because I do wait to hear any of those recitals which you may have of different artists. And you've spoken about poetry being a big medium which has helped you to think about yourself, your career, what you would want to be in life as well. Um, I hope I've done my research right, but that's what I have come to know, that poetry has been a big influence for you.
Yeah, I must talk about this that as a kid or as even a college going student, I always used to feel, why do people write poetry or why do they, hear it? Because what's the point of living in a dream world or imagining something that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
So, I was a very practical person. People used to like all those people who were following their heart at that point of time would actually make those sarcastic comments at me saying, "You're too practical, and all that." And I would never
Hmm.
understand. I'll tell you why poetry is important. And I came across this one interview when I was doing my research for my radio show and Bollywood's golden era. So I was doing a research on Dilip Kumar, and I came
Okay.
across this one interview of his, very old interview, where the interviewer basically said that the world doesn't know, but you also write poetry. And Dilip Kumar said, "Well, I try." So he said, "Why do you write poetry?
Hmm.
Why do you read poetry?" Because Dilip Kumar was actually, quoting a lot of couplets and stuff. And he said just one thing, Anis, and that's been an eye opening sentence for me. He said, "Listen, if you need to understand and know who you originally are or were
Hmm.
before the society and its rules and regulations tamed you,
Hmm.
how you were originally created, what is your heart and soul all about? How are you as an unadulterated being? If you want to know that, who the real you is, you need to read poetry because you
Hmm.
would know which kind of poetry would appeal to you. Only the one that your heart or soul or mind resonates with. And why you would try and understand, why do you like this couplet so much more, and it'll
Hmm.
stay with you. That the answer is in the question itself. Okay.
Hmm.
So so uh, poetry is liberating.
Hmm.
We go through so many emotions and we think about so many things, but
Yeah.
we are not articulate enough. We can't say it exactly how we feel it or how we
Yeah.
think about it. We keep struggling with words.
Mm.
And poets have actually uh, given the meaning of life in a couplet,
Mm.
and that's it. So that's why I'm very fascinated with poetry and work of literature, because you have all the answers there. I mean, I am a huge fan of Sadat Hasan Manto, the storyteller.
Mm.
And why do I like his stories, Anis? Because he wrote all those stories 70 years back.
Yep.
And it's like he wrote them today. And I
Yeah.
understand that the society will go through those motions. And what should be my role? What should be my role? I will find an answer to this question of today in a story that's written 70 years back.
Yeah. And many of those, like we spoke about it earlier in this conversation, that a lot of poetry and the words have many, and they can live forever. It's not necessary it's built for an era or a type or a generation. Those can be inferred in any generation as well, or any moment also. And you're so right that many of these poets have had far too thinking in many ways, that they could think too far ahead and say that the poem would live forever. It's not going to be for that particular day or that moment which they were in at that time.
Yes, and I mean, and that is what makes it immortal. And also, Anis, that I mean, look at the beauty of these couplets. They can fit into any situation. For
Hmm.
example, that couplet of Ghalib, which I recently kind of, tried explaining. दिल ही तो है न संगो खिश्त is ईंट पत्थर, दर्द से
Hmm.
भर न आए क्यों, रोएंगे हम हजार बार, कोई हमें रुलाए क्यों.
Hmm.
Now the context can vary. It can be a lover talking about his unrequited love.
Yep.
It can be a person talking about the god.
Yep.
Okay. Or let's say in today's context, it can be an unemployed youth talking to the government, saying,
Hmm.
well, I will have struggles in my life and my heart will be filled with pain and sorrow. But who are you to cause it all?
Yeah.
So one couplet can just fit into anything and everything. And they write it uh, in a certain context, and it just gets adapted to different people's life so beautifully.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say this to my boss.
Sure. I would love to do that too. No, that's no, you're so bang on, and on that particular point, that there have been so many songs or ghazals, or even just basic recitals of poets, which I have seen people, even my own father, God bless him and God bless his soul, he was a big advocate of ghazals, right? He would have people come together and do these ghazal shows. And I could see as a child that, as the individuals are reciting those poems, or those, they need not have written it themselves, they are reciting somebody else's poem, but the entire crowd is crying. And it's not necessary they are all crying because they are all in the same situation. They come from a different background, they come from a different culture,
Yeah.
but something has hit in that poem which you know just invokes an emotion which is similar at a point. So no, you're bang on, and I've seen that happening with my own eyes. And I today relate to so many poems. If I'm demotivated, or if I'm a little bit low, you listen to some of them, and you're just settled in many ways.
And the pen is mightier than the sword is not just a saying. I mean,
Yeah.
all these poets have created revolutions. Even today, We fear a poet like Faiz.
Hmm.
The government becomes is scared if I'm reciting Faiz.
Hmm.
Can you believe it? It's just like a poetry,
Yeah.
but it hits you. It basically it is a revolution that happens in an individual, and you can change the direction. That's why I'm saying that all these work of poetry or literature, they were not meant to just entertain. I mean, they give me a direction in life, and that's exactly what every soul on this earth is looking for.
Yeah.
We all have, like, bunch of unanswered questions, and we're looking for answers, and these are the lines which actually give you a direction. If I
They do.
am, they give you that flicker of hope, as you put it. I mean, if I don't know what I have to do today, there's so much of injustice happening around. What should I do? I mean, I can easily get depressed, but I'm looking for that one flicker of hope. I'm looking for that one piece of writing which would actually show me a way out.
Hmm.
And invariably, these work of poetry and literature, they do that. They give you the 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 so-called direction in life. So yeah.
Switching gears and kind of building on what you just said, has there been any mentor whom you look up to?
My father,
Okay.
yeah, I think he's a fine balance of uh, mind and heart.
Hmm.
And I have always seen him living a very practical life, because since childhood he's had many responsibilities, and he could have easily been an individual who would have got bogged down with the struggles and challenges and unending challenges of life, and not living his life his way, because bachpan mein you don't have the money. Then
Yeah.
when you start working, you get married, then you have burden of the family and all of that. So all your youth goes into shouldering responsibility and staying and living a life of a responsible individuals. But he today he's a poet. The day he retired from his associate professor wala position, he became a poet. He
Oh,
started
nice.
writing Urdu poetry like the next, and every day he would write a nazm or a ghazal. And I would like go to him and I say, what has happened? Like, we never knew that you could write poetry. He said, so didn't I.
Hmm.
But it happens, it dawns on you. You can't learn to write poetry. It dawns
No,
on
you
you.
can't. Yeah.
It
It
dawns on
dawns
you.
on you.
So
Yeah.
so he said it dawns and that is when he started writing, is when I actually got to see his heart.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, matlab, it's all there. Hope
Yeah.
and optimism and belief and gratitude and so much romance. I mean, uh, I was petrified for my mother when he started
Okay.
so many romantic poetry. I
Okay.
said, hello, is there anybody else in your life?
I'm
So,
sure he would have said no. It's your mother.
no, 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 he doesn't lie.
No.
No.
Okay. Okay.
No, but I mean, both of us believe, and I'm sure, like many others, that
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you fall in love. It's not in your. I mean, you don't decide who
Yeah.
you want to fall in love with. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, you get to know if you have fallen in love with somebody. So it's not in your hands. So nothing there. But I mean, then I got to learn that you can write a poetry without even
Even for
falling
being in
in
love.
love with
Yeah.
somebody. You can feel it. That's another learning, that you don't have to go through somebody else's struggle in order to understand what that person is going through.
Hmm.
Why can't you understand that he just needs somebody, he just needs somebody to listen,
Hmm.
those little things. So yeah, yeah, all of that started, and my father was another reason why I actually became very close to poetry, and I had to learn poetry, because uh, I would recite his writings, and we would get into an endless argument when he would say,
Okay.
you did not stress this word correctly and
Uh,
you did not do that whatever correctly. And I'm like, oh my god, like every day this man is really hitting my performance, like.
Okay.
So I said, I need to like get closer to the art.
Yeah. And in Urdu, you have to have your talaffuz right. You have to have your the dialect right to stress on those words or those specific letters
Or
because
any language for that matter, Anis.
yeah.
I'm a purist when it comes to language. So when you're speaking English, you've got to respect the diction and the tone
Hmm.
and the words. And you can't keep fighting saying, oh, this word, I want to pronounce it the Indian way. I don't understand that at all. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
English is not an Indian language, so let's not
Yeah.
that. And if you're speaking in Urdu, please, when you speak, it should sound like Urdu. When you speak in Hindi, it should sound like Hindi. When you're speaking in Punjabi, it should sound like Punjabi. So I'm a purist that way. Uh, and yeah, so any language and
Yep.
Urdu for sure, because one nukta here and there and you're gone. I mean, Khuda
Yeah.
becomes a gadha.
Yeah. It's
So
very scary in many ways if you recite it in a wrong way because people can take very different meanings. And
absolutely.
on that particular point, I know we are in between your shows, and I don't want to take much of your time. But before you go, and I definitely would love to hear this thought from you, is there are a lot of aspiring, especially there's a lot of conversation today in today's time about diversity. It is the Women's Month, International Women's Month right now also, and we are just celebrating our Women's Week and Women's Day. Uh, what about young women, girls who would love to get into radio or, you know, build their careers there? What would your advice be to them?
Anis, I would just say one thing. Um, we are going through the best of times when the world is when the sky is the limit for you. You wish
Hmm,
to showcase your talent. I'm assuming that they wish to showcase their talent, and that's why they're coming to radio. And I'm saying you don't have just one medium, you have so many.
hmm,
And in order to be a successful radio jockey, you've got to be a popular radio jockey.
hmm.
And if there are other media which are supporting your cause of becoming popular, then I think they should make the most of it. And remember that it's not the looks which would get you uh, popular on social media all alone.
Hmm.
It would be your content. It would be your honesty, your conviction, your um, uh, i- anybody who wants to become a radio jockey should remember that they are not the touch me not celebrities. They're the friends next door.
Yep.
And this world has very less friends. If they can be the loyal and the loving and the understanding and the patient friend to another person, then it's it's just a big opportunity out there.
Okay. Beautifully said, uh, and a great advice to the young aspirants. Saima, thank you for your time. Do you want to recite a favorite poet of yours before you say bye to my audience, which probably energizes them?
Okay, so let me just find something nice. Okay, let me recite uh, a revolutionary poet
Okay,
who inspires me a lot.
okay,
His pen name is Pash.
okay.
Okay, and the poetry that I'm going to recite is called "सबसे खतरनाक होता है
Hmm.
हमारे सपनों का मर जाना." So he writes, मेहनत की लूट सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होती, पुलिस की मार सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होती, गद्दारी और लोभ की मुट्ठी सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होती, बैठे बिठाए पकड़े जाना बुरा तो है, सहमी सी चुप में जकड़े जाना बुरा तो है, सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होता। कपट के शोर में सही होते हुए भी दब जाना बुरा तो है। जुगनुओं की लौ में पढ़ना, मुट्ठियां भींच कर बस वक्त निकाल लेना बुरा तो है, सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होता। सबसे खतरनाक होता है मुर्दा शांति से भर जाना, तड़प का ना होना, सब कुछ सहन कर जाना, घर से निकलना काम पर और काम से लौटकर घर आना। सबसे खतरनाक होता है हमारे सपनों का मर जाना। सबसे खतरनाक वो घड़ी होती है आपकी कलाई पर चलती हुई भी जो आपकी नजर में रुकी होती है। सबसे खतरनाक वो आंख होती है जिसकी नजर दुनिया को मोहब्बत से चूमना भूल जाती है और जो एक घटिया दोहराव के क्रम में खो जाती है। सबसे खतरनाक वो गीत होता है जो मरसिए की तरह पढ़ा जाता है, आतंकित लोगों के दरवाजों पर गुंडों की तरह करता है। सबसे खतरनाक वो चांद होता है जो हर हत्याकांड के बाद वीरान हुए आंगन में चढ़ता है, लेकिन आपकी आंखों में मिर्चों की तरह नहीं गड़ता। सबसे खतरनाक वो दिशा होती है जिसमें आत्मा का सूरज डूब जाए और जिसकी मुर्दा धूप का कोई टुकड़ा आपके जिस्म के पूरब में चुभ जाए। मेहनत की लूट सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होती, पुलिस की मार सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होती, गद्दारी और लोभ की मुट्ठी सबसे खतरनाक नहीं होती। सबसे खतरनाक होता है हमारे सपनों का मर जाना।
Wow. Okay. I've never heard about it, but it's definitely energizing. Thank you for that, Saima, and thanks a lot for this time. It's definitely been an enriching conversation, and please keep doing what you're doing because that definitely has an impact on many of us.
Thanks a lot, Anise. I loved chatting with you. And like we discussed in the beginning, that it's always nice to have a chat who just, kind of takes its own flow because it's all about mind, heart, and soul. And
Yep.
yes, I just want to say one thing, Anise, to anybody and everybody who's listening, that we sometimes we get really bogged down with uh, a challenging phase that comes in our lives.
Yep.
But we need to understand one thing: there is nothing that happens without a purpose. And we need to find the purpose in that. And we need to be patient about it. All the bad things that happen in our lives are not there to cause us pain, are not there to test us. They're there to make us even better, even more strong and uh, stable for the life ahead. Because perhaps we underestimated ourselves, and this is the time to, rise up to the occasion and take it all along. We need to learn from our tears. We need to learn from our pain. It's difficult, but it's the strongest and the more lasting lesson that life could offer. So whenever you're going through a bad time, hang in there and let it pass. The beauty of time is that it goes away. It doesn't stay. When we say that the pain is not going away, we should remember that somewhere we are not letting it go. And we are all there for each other, with each other.
Yep. Thank you for those amazing parting thoughts. Saima, thank you for your time
Thank
and
you, Anis.
best of luck with what you're doing and keep changing lives.
Thank you so much, Anis. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening in. And we close yet another episode of Masters Decoded. If you've enjoyed the episode, please you can help us out by sharing it on social media. I would personally appreciate that. It's how we can reach more listeners, and the more listeners we have, the more awesome guests I can get in touch and convince to participate in these conversations that are a joy to have for me, and I hope they are a joy for you to listen as well. You can also help a lot leaving reviews on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Reviews are surprisingly helpful in supporting the podcast to get to more listeners. If this episode has intrigued you, I would request you to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date and get notified to the future episodes. With that, I bid you and see you in the next episode.